All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here at the Training, Learning, and Development Community. We are here with another member showcase. We're a little late on the clock, but Crowdcast has actually been stellar in trying to help make sure that we can make this particular Crowdcast meeting happen. And so here we are. And it looks like we have some live folks in the audience. Check here. We have like 25 people registered. And who's here? I saw that Cindy was here. Kat is here. Leonardo, April, Lindsay, Christina. Thanks so much for joining today. All right. So we tried to schedule this one last week, had some tech problems. Crowdcast jumped in today and helped us with making sure that we were broadcasting. So it took us 3 computers, lots of different tech, but we are now here. And as most of you know, for these member showcases, I have a series of questions to find out more about Taylor and actually just learn altogether more about instructional design culture and the people that populate this industry and work in this industry. And for me, it's just been a fascinating journey learning about literally, like, I think I've done this a few hundred times, and every story is always different and interesting and amazing. And I'm so glad that Taylor, that you're able to take the time to do this with us.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. So what I've got is a series of questions, and I'm gonna go ahead and just start. Like, how did you start out into instructional design? You were a clerk at Hy-Vee, and you became an instructional designer at Allstate. How did that work?
Well, it's a really long story, so I hope you're prepared to buckle in.
Okay, we're both
Um, okay, the job at Hy-Vee honestly was I needed a job. I got my bachelor's degree in language arts education, so secondary English, and I graduated in December, which is not really a time that people are looking for teachers.
Mhm.
So I just needed something, anything. Brand new married too.
Mhm.
Just graduated, just married, needed something. So I was working at the gas station, and my husband was working in the kitchen at Hy-Vee. It was a great time for everybody. A friend, I was also substitute teaching at the time through the Lincoln Public Schools system here in Nebraska. Um, and that was when I kind of decided that classroom teaching wasn't really for me.
Mhm.
I didn't really get that classroom management thing down. So I started looking for just a full-time job. And one of my friends from Hy-Vee had gotten a job at Allstate as a term conversion processor. And so I started applying at Allstate. I ended up in the call center for a little bit. And
Mhm.
then I transferred over to the same department as my friend. And I stayed there for long enough where I became a trainer for that department,
Mhm.
which is where I was like, well, uh, teaching really is my thing.
Yeah.
Um, but then through some decisions, they took that training bit away from me. So I started looking for other positions, and I was applying and applying and applying, and I wasn't getting any jobs. And one day I was in a meeting for another reason why, like talking to the hiring manager, why didn't I get this position? They were like, well, the other candidates just had a little bit more project management experience than you. I was like, well, I can't get that without being in a job that allows me to get that.
Yeah.
So then I thought back to a few months prior where we had a career fair at Allstate, and they had a booth for one of the universities in Crete, which is just an hour outside of Lincoln.
Uh-huh.
And they had a program for instructional design and technology.
Mm.
And one of the elective classes was in project management,
Okay.
which is what sparked it. So I applied, I got in, I earned my master's, and then I kept applying. Had to advocate for myself, but the team that I'm currently on made an opportunity for me specifically after an interview that I had done with the manager.
Mm.
Um, and that's how I got here.
Wow. So, okay, so the Hy-Vee experience, this was 2016, right? So pre-pandemic,
Mhm.
and then you
Yep.
decide how long did it take for you to get your, master's in instructional design?
I did it super speedy in a year and a half.
Okay, okay, okay. And then it was, like, right after that that you were able to get that position at Allstate?
No, I had to wait until last September.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
wow. That's amazing. That's very, very cool. Like, and you had mentioned earlier that you realized that, that the a career in education was like the path for you. How did you know that? Why was it that that being an educator is what felt right?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that once you get me on a subject that I like, I can't stop talking about it until you also know everything that I know
Mm,
about it.
nice.
But like even when I was little, I like playing school was what I did. Um, when I got to college, it was like I really like English, and my mother won't allow me to just get a straight English degree
Hmm.
because, yeah, that's a whole other story.
Right.
Um, so I decided to pair it with teaching because of my passion for helping others reach their potential. That's what it's really turned into. The more self discovery I've had over the past few years, I just really want people to do their best too.
That's really interesting. Very cool. So you've been a cashier, substitute teacher, writing consultant, faculty assistant. How has all of that kind of combined to influence what you do now as an instructional designer?
Oh,
Or has it at all?
of course it has. Every experience that everybody has contributes to who they are
Mhm,
and how they see the world. What that myriad of jobs did for me was it put me in contact with a lot of different people. So I got a lot of different perspectives on how other people see the world,
mhm,
which is kind of essential when you're designing instruction for other people. If
right.
I'm just designing instruction for me, it's probably not going to help too many people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very cool. How about any specifics as far as your background as a consultant, a writing consultant, and a copy editor? That must have helped your instructional design quite a bit.
Yes. A writing consultant in particular was I would sit down and have a 30-minute consultation with students trying to write their term papers and go like line by line through what they'd already written and
Yep.
correct all of their grammar mistakes
Mhm,
and
mhm,
clarity errors. Um, so really that has made me very nitpicky when I'm doing scripts and voiceovers and everything, which probably drives some of my teammates crazy with how nitpicky I can get.
mhm,
Um, but it's also taught me like the power of words and how to get things succinct and
mhm,
still clear and digestible for the learners.
mhm. So as a writing consultant, has that ex is that does that experience kind of parallel maybe working with an SME?
Yes,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Mhm,
Um, because they also kind of go line through
mhm,
whatever we're doing, and we butt heads sometimes about what the right thing to do is for the learner.
mhm.
So the people management skills of trying to get to the right combination of words.
Right, absolutely. And what you're doing at Allstate now, what are the types of learning materials that you do create? Is it mostly, writing, or what else do you do, as far as an instructional designer?
It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
There's like e-learnings with Articulate,
Mhm,
there's videos and sometimes PDF job aids, very rarely. Like decks in PowerPoint for live facilitated education.
mm,
That's most of what we do, but that it spans a lot of different things just with the amount of topics that are available in insurance education.
right. How big is your team?
Oh, it seems pretty small because I'm so close with everybody, but
Mm.
let me think. think there's 7
Mhm.
or 8 designers, a couple project managers. Our team recently expanded, so I don't know if I have those numbers right, but
Right.
it's pretty small. 14 maybe.
Can you, share a project maybe that you are particularly proud of that you may have worked on, since you started doing this stuff, in September?
Yeah. One of the biggest projects that I worked on this year was our annual compliance content,
Mhm.
which is very dry and very essential.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of heads in the room trying to get everything right. And my biggest challenge was trying to turn some very dry content into something very engaging, or
Mhm.
at least more than it was before. Because it was very just like, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. Here's some multiple choice questions. Um, I added some scenarios in Rise that really put the learner in a reflective frame of mind instead of just going for cut and dried, boring compliance.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Nice. So, something I wanna also go back to a little bit. You had talked about, how you as a gas as a clerk at Hy-Vee and a substitute teacher and all that, that you have had to cater to a diverse audience, like, be it in customer service or in education. How do you do that now in your instructional design, when you build things? Do you probably consider all of that stuff now when you're creating stuff, right?
mhm.
Being able to build like a diverse content for different types of people. Is there anything specific you can talk to about that?
A lot of it comes down to doing a very thorough needs analysis before you get started.
Hmm.
Knowing who your audience is very important into what you end up with as your deliverable. Um, Most of the content that we work with is specifically for insurance agents,
Hmm.
but we've also branched out into designing more content for like home office employees and other groups. If we don't know who we're talking about, it's hard to create effective content. A big driver for us this year has been accessibility as well.
Hmm.
It wasn't really necessarily a focus in the past, but we have really been working hard to make sure that everything is more accessible this year.
That's awesome. Is there a particular reason why that became an emphasis?
We had a learner come through that was visually impaired
Mm.
and was not able to access some of our content, um, and then they needed it. So, um, yeah, we learned from that experience that we weren't doing as well as we thought we were, and are making it a focus to do better going forward.
Nice. So I guess this is where I can pitch the fact that TLDC is producing an accessibility event coming up August 14th through 18th. Thanks for that, Taylor. Like it's like segue perfectly.
I
But
did actually have that invite open when we were starting this, so it was top of mind.
that's great. So yeah, and it's at www.vaidc.com. It's actually building it out right now has been really fun. It's very energetic, and my LinkedIn profile is just going crazy with mentions and stuff. So, but register. I mean, we can. The seating is limited for this one, so out there, listeners or viewers, you might want to register soon so that you can make sure you get in for the live event. Okay, so how about you as a professional? How do you stay up to date with L&D best practices? Are there any resources or communities that you're a part of aside from TLDC that help you make sure that you're on top of your game?
Well, TLDC is one of the main ones at the moment.
Thanks, Taylor.
I also got in touch with a lot of really interesting professionals through my master's program,
Hmm.
and I'm actually working on a doctorate right now.
Ooh,
So just
congrats.
getting thanks, getting more and more. And then I've also been blessed with a team who is very intentional about finding things and posting them in our Teams chat,
Mhm.
um, TikToks, LinkedIn learnings. articles, everything. So I get a lot of extra content just from that alone, because we're all pushing each other to do better.
Oh, that's great. That is sounds like a very supportive environment. That's awesome. So why the doctorate?
Well, because I really like school, I like to learn. I'm a learning
Mhm.
professional. So it's always been on my bucket list to get a doctorate. The why now has to do with my husband is in dental school. He's a third of the way through his first year, just took his first half of written boards today.
Mhm.
Yay.
Congrats.
Um, and uh, I was bored because he was home, like gone and like doing stuff. So there's only so much TV you can watch. So
So I'll just get a PhD. Why not?
yeah, why not? Um, Also, just a little bit petty because he's going to be a doctor, so I should be one too.
Right. Yeah, you gotta make sure that that household has some balance there.
Mhm.
Um, and you say that, that you're a lifelong learner. What is it that you like most about being an L&D professional or about this career that you've chosen?
I really like putting out content that looks good, that is effective for the individual like consuming it, and knowing that I am actively contributing to helping someone else do better
Mhm.
in their life. I'm meeting a need that they have. That's really important to me. I also just really love my team. Um, I found more support from learning and development communities than any other community basically in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's just a great group of people to hang out with, and it does make me want to do better too.
Yeah. No, that's great. What is it about your team that you love so much? I'm really curious.
We are all there for each other. We're
Mhm.
all ready to pitch in and help. We're all really cool people. Our interests really align. Um, and part of it was like I did officially get the job in September, but I was working with the team kind of as a side project
Mhm.
since March. And the way that they opened their arms and let me in and like helped me learn and get experience that I could put on my portfolio and my resume, and they actually cared, that was life changing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. Are you do you work in an office? You work remotely?
I work remotely.
Ah, okay. That's great.
That's a great perk.
So as far as the insurance industry is concerned, I mean, do you see instructional design or what you do changing at all now? Are things like moving quick towards the future of instructional design and insurance, or what's the pace of things? Like, are you having to find solutions to things that are more futuristic, or does insurance stay pretty consistent all around?
I mean, I'd like to say that it stays pretty consistent all around, but every industry is changing. Really, what's changing for insurance is not just the L&D, but like the customer base wants something different than it did 10 years ago.
Mhm.
So my company is investing a lot into digital tools and trying to keep up with the way that customers want to buy insurance, which is almost all online. But you still have those people who want to call in or they want to walk into an office. So trying to cater to all those customer perspectives and then supporting the insurance agents in adapting to
Right.
whichever one they want to do. Um, our team in particular is trying to adapt to like we're exploring micro learnings. We're trying to make everything short and sweet, um, just to try and help our learners keep up with all of the demands on their time, which are becoming more and more because of the customer base, because
Yeah.
everybody wants things faster.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. I do have a nice question from Christina here, Christina Pringy, who's asking, can you talk about some of the measures your team is using to demonstrate the effectiveness of your L&D projects?
Mm, that's a good one. We do a lot of our reporting through our LMS, but like the bottom line of how effective we're being is whether our agents are being effective. So it all kind of comes around to, are the agents making the sales and making the profits? How much are we paying out in claims? All of that. So it's kind of difficult to put numbers around sometimes. We have to do it kind of in a roundabout way. But we do see and track trends from new education that we're putting out, and then whether the corresponding metric for the agents is also changing.
Wow. That's an interesting way of having to measure your success. But I suspect that's probably pretty typical in the insurance industry. So, yeah, that's very cool. All right. Thanks for that question, Christina. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up a little bit with just a couple more questions. If you weren't like an L&D professional, what do you think you would be instead, Taylor?
Mm. I really wanted to be a writer for a while,
Hmm.
which is probably a huge surprise considering my background.
Right.
Um, but no, I think this is the perfect marriage of like all of my interests in the workplace.
Wow. That's pretty special. Not everybody gets to do that, right? Just
Mhm.
being able to find something that you actually feel like your personality really aligns to, and you have all of these different experiences that you can collect and apply to a career choice. That's a big deal.
It
Um,
was interesting because I didn't touch on this earlier. When I applied for the Instructional Design and Technology master's degree, I didn't really know what an instructional designer was or what they did. I just remembered that project management course.
right.
But then, like, I took the intro couple courses. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything I ever wanted and the perfect time for me to do it because I started January 2020 when we all went remote.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's so fortuitous. Is there anything about your job as an instructional designer that is particularly challenging for you?
Mm. Sometimes there's a lot of hurry up and wait. Like, I need you to have this done, but the information that you need in order to create the learning, I'm not going to give that to you for a couple weeks. Or like just waiting on other people to give information that I need to create. Because I don't know everything about the products that I'm teaching people how to sell. I don't know everything about the systems.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the SME is for.
Yeah, yeah. Do you build a lot of e-learning?
I do.
You
I
do?
do.
What kind
Yeah.
of tools do you use?
Mostly articulate.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes if we're getting fancy, we'll put a Beyond video in there or work in Camtasia, but mostly articulate.
Wow, wow, so that's pretty much, the tool, huh?
Mm,
You going to any, conferences or anything like that coming up?
um, Not in person, and the only one I had planned was the TLDC one in August.
Okay, alright, well then, we're gonna definitely see you there. Last question that I'm gonna ask you, Taylor, what is the one thing that people should know about you?
Yeah, it's such a hard question. I thought about it and I asked a few people,
Yeah,
um, and I'm just gonna have to go with Eli's answer. I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I think it's cool.
okay, who's Eli?
He's one of my teammates.
Alright, cool. Alright, so you play dungeon okay, so that is actually really interesting to me because I'm actually talking with some people right now about or talking specifically with Don Metcalf about integrating a doing a games and gamification event, but integrating D&D into it. So I'm gonna have to reach out to you, Taylor, because maybe we could use some feedback on once we come up with that. I mean, tell me what you think about this. If we had a session zero with some D&D aficionados to talk about building this event out, you think that would be interesting?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll keep you posted. That's great. Because I play D&D too. My son, especially my 9-year-old son, is crazy about it. So I love it whenever the conversation goes to D&D because I have been playing since the early '80s, and so I'm a big fan. Well, gosh, Taylor, thank you so much for finally getting in here and having this conversation with me. I really, really appreciate it, and it was great meeting you. And I'm glad the community gets to learn more about you. I'll be posting this one on the website, and also there's an audio broadcast that I'll be sharing via the TLDC podcast. And with that, let's see, we do have one more broadcast this week. We are going to be talking with Rubina Halwani and Toddy Norum about some Vion vignettes that Rubina has been building, and that'll be happening on Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern. So check that out if you're interested at all about what she's doing with Vion. And with that, Taylor, thanks again. Say thanks to your husband for letting him use your computer for this one, and appreciate everybody out there in the live audience. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.